Hello, my name is Jeremy Adelman, and I'm a professor of history at Princeton University. And I'd like to welcome you to this course, a survey of global or world history since 1300, which we will cover over the course of the next 24 lectures spaced over 13 weeks. In fact, it's 12 weeks of lecture. There'll be a week break in the middle in accordance with the Princeton semester structure, which I'll get to in just a minute. But I'd like to welcome you here. This is a course I've been teaching for a number of years at Princeton. And it's a course that's really allowed me, along with the Princeton students, to explore the complicated byways from very distant pasts to our present. It's also a course that summarizes a lot of reflections and thoughts and research that I've been conducting in global history for many years now. I'm originally Canadian. I was educated at the University of Toronto, the London School of Economics, and Oxford University, and lived in several countries in Latin America before moving to the United States in 1992. And it was partly as a Canadian working on Latin America, living in Europe and the United States, that made me realize that, and this is one of the themes of the course, that global processes and global events have different perspectives according to where you look at them. And this is one of, as I said, the themes of the course. As I meandered about the globe, I discovered the existence of something called global or world history. I had begun to read histories of commodities and how they flowed back and forth across borders. The work of the anthropologist Sidney Mintz was very influential on my thinking, and I'm going to introduce his work and his contribution to global history in about 5 or 6 lectures' time. More recently, I've been thinking a lot about how ideas cross borders and how they get translated and refashioned according to different political and geographic circumstances. And with a colleague of mine who now teaches at the University of California, Los Angeles, Steve Aaron, I began to work on areas of the world known as borderlands. And you are also going to see how borderland regions have big effects on the course of global history. And it was, of course, thanks to in a sense, the leadership of a close colleague of mine, Robert Tigner, that I participated in a group effort, most of us based here at Princeton, in writing an overview textbook in world or global history. And it was through that experience that I really began to plunge myself into the making of this course. And most recently, I've completed a book, survey of the life of one important intellectual who moved across borders during the 20th century. So this course, as I said, ravels together many of the themes and ideas that I've been thinking about for many years and from many places. And it has a few basic objectives. The first one is, in a sense, to introduce you to the joy of thinking historically. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means appreciating what events and people look like in other times. We were not always what we seem to be now, and so it's important to recapture those other times and places. So we have to reconstruct, and this is a big part of what we'll do this semester, what the world looked like from a different period in time, to resist what is often called the fallacy of hindsight. That is, that we may know now what the outcome of history was, and we judge historical actors based on what we know, but they did not. And I'm going to urge us to resist that temptation to collapse into the fallacy of hindsight. And that's why the challenge of thinking historically is, in a sense, suspending that temptation. Hindsight, of course, does give us perspectives, but we have to be humble. So that's objective number one, to think historically. The second is to think about other peoples and other places. And so one of the objectives here is to think comparatively. I said already that I myself became aware as I moved across borders that the very same events and processes meant different things to different people. We have to think comparatively. We have to think about how these things look differently from different perspectives. The world is very heterogeneous. It's heterogeneous in its makeup and in the perceptions of what makes the world. One of the underlying currents is going to be to examine different economic systems, for instance. There was never just one way to organize economic life, and we're going to see many different models of globalization unfold over the centuries. In fact, we are going to see that some models of global integration required multiple forms of economic organization within it, not a single form predominated. So, objective number one is to think historically, and objective number two is to think about other peoples and places and their perspectives on history. Objective number three is to explore the multiple forces that bring the parts of the world together. For there is not just a single force of globalization, there are multiple forces that compel the parts of the world to come together. Warfare is one, as we're going to see. Commercial exchange and trade is another. So too is, and this is going to be a big theme for us over the course of the semester, is the circulation of images, texts, words, signs. For the fact is, we create images of each other in the course of interacting with each other, and these images themselves have powerful effects on global history and on globalization. It gives us a sense of who we are in history. And I'm hoping, here's an aspiration for the course, that when you read the news as you study global history this semester, you start to look at the news and the circulation of images of global events, scrolling the internet, reading the newspaper, that you start to think differently about the production of those images and how they constitute the world. In a sense, this is going to be World History Live. Let me talk briefly about the format of the course. This is a Princeton course. Princeton students are taking this course. Princeton students are watching this lecture along with the rest of you. And as such, the course conforms to the structure of a Princeton semester and is designed to invite you to get a sense of what it's like to learn, as one might say, the Princeton way. Here are some components of the course. I will offer you 2 lectures a week. We will roll them out every Sunday evening. These lectures are aimed primarily at offering you large interpretive arguments about world history. The lectures will be organized by titles and themes, separated into different segments. At the end of each segment of the lecture, there will be a question posed to you that will ask you to apply a concept or an important piece of detail that I've just introduced in that previous segment, to invite you to already begin to apply the knowledge that you're acquiring in the lecture. Second component of the course is reading. This is a Princeton course. We believe that reading is an important part of the learning process, partly because there's only so much that we can cover in the lecture. After all, we're surveying 700 years of global history, and so supplemental readings are very important for allowing you to probe further into further detail themes that I have to cover very lightly in the course. It also shifts the way in which you learn. Now you become, in a sense, the investigator instead of just sitting and watching my lecture. Reading is a very different exercise in learning than watching lectures, and it's an important complement to that process. And I'm therefore recommending that you procure the textbook that we wrote for this course called Worlds Together, Worlds Apart, and I will be posting instructions for the various ways in which you can gain access to that textbook. A third component of the course in the discussion forums. This was something that I learned in teaching the course in this online format last year. There was a very exciting space where students engaged in very intense, very fertile collaborative learning. And I would invite you to go into the forum section of the Coursera site and talk with each other, exchange ideas and information about the course. In a sense, we can turn the course, we can bring the globe into the course itself. Finally, there are assignments. The Princeton students will have their own set of assignments that I will be talking to them about. But for the students who are registered on Coursera, we will be posting every 2 weeks essays for you, a choice of 3 questions, and you can choose one of those to write a short essay that you have 1 week to compose and submit for peer assessment. And we will be posting guidelines on how to write, how to evaluate, our expectations for what you can get out of the writing process. And again, this is an important component. All these parts of the course reinforce the learning objectives here, because it's when you get to write that you are invited then to apply knowledge and concepts that you've been absorbing over the week. This course is an experiment. While I tried it last semester, some things went better than others, so we'll be making some adaptations. I appreciate your patience and your understanding as we learn along with you about what works and does not work. We're not here, I should say, to grade you. Princeton will not be offering grades, will be not offering certificates of completion. Here we are together to learn together. That's the fundamental objective. As you end the course, if you can look back over the 12 or 13 weeks that we've been together, I want you to think about the knowledge that you've gained over the semester. When you read the world's news and think about its global implications in a different way by the end of the course, you will have picked something up. When you compare the papers that you've written at the end of the semester to the papers that you've submitted at the beginning of the semester, and you notice a difference, you will have learned something in this course. If you see a difference over the course of 12 or 13 weeks of studying together with me and your fellow students on Coursera, if you see a difference, I will have done a small part in the making of world history.